Hey, greetings there. This is Matt. I wanted to pop on here and kind of cast some vision for you about something that really hit me this last year. And I was reflecting on how much, if you saw that, I posted, I did kind of like an art debrief from 2024, and it was so satisfying to just look back at the year and see see the fruit of kind of taking some intentionality at at making art this last year, whether it was for business purposes or for fun or for gifting people or for communities, whatever it was. It was just really satisfying to look back and say, hey, that was much better to just make stuff than it wasn't. And but that's not terribly convincing if we're trying to talk with people about, hey, you should just make stuff. And so I want to just start with this problem. Let's see. Problem in 2025. And that's this. How do you start impacting culture with your art? How do you start seeing traction occur? I know I have made art and it's fallen flat on the face, has gone nowhere but my own joy. And then I've made artwork that has actually like reached thousands of people. And even today, art I might have made 10, 15 years ago, I actually get comments on today that, hey, I still listen to that song, or that drawing actually means a lot to me. In fact, I just got uh, a friend of mine from 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, reached out to me, and he wants to hire me to do all the paintings for a project he is working on, and he's going to market it and everything. And the basis for him asking for me was a painting I did back in college. And he's like, that painting was one of the most beautiful things. Um, Now that was very nice to hear. But man, you just don't know the investment you're making, what impact it will have. And so that's what I want to just pop on here and make a video about. Um, Oops, let me just fix this real quick. Okay. All right. So, sorry for the delay there. Okay, so that's the problem. I have this vision I want to propose to you. Back when I did my master's work, there was this article I'd read by an SIL translator, actually a scripture use specialist named Michelle Peterson. She was an instructor of mine. And she wrote this article called Arts Development for Scripture Engagement. Uh, Sorry, you're just hearing my voice mostly, but I'll connect some dots here in a minute. And in this paper, it was so good. She talked about Martin Luther and just how ironic it is that you know today I have never read a Martin Luther book, maybe like one, like his small catechism, but like 500 years later, we are still singing a few of his hymns. If you go to a church that sings those hymns, and it's like, how did that happen? So she wrote a paper about that, and it's really, really good. But I'm taking a few things from her paper, and I am just kind of borrowing them for the sake of this. But she talks about three things needed for that to happen. She talks about corpus, status, and acquisition. And I'm gonna press pause on her paper and now jump off uh, from this, because I think this is really crucial, and I really want to hit on this pretty hard because I think it actually is the entire reason I made a lot of art last year. But let me start here. Making art that will impact a culture or group of people. It first starts with corpus. There just needs to be a body of work that impact that it ideas by themselves don't impact a culture. those ideas embedded in artifacts and assets, different symbols, for our sake, artwork, is what start to spread in a culture. And so that is like the foundation of everything. That our ideas need to manifest themselves in some way, right? Tied to that, those ideas need to go through these two filters. They need some kind of status. And what I mean by that is positionally within any group of people, how are those artifacts, artworks, going to spread? They will not spread without having some kind of status. They need to have some kind of trust with the people. I know I've made artwork, and one time I tried to play a concert at a church. In this church, it felt really strange they actually told me, don't play your like artsy stuff. Now, what they meant by that was their people at the church had a certain genre expectation, right? And my genre didn't match the genre that they were used to. Well, what's the pastor doing when he tells me that? He's making a status comment to me. He's not saying my music is bad or isn't good. He's just saying, hey, your genre will be a disconnect if you don't tweak it a little bit for our people, right? Now, at the time, I was way younger and I was a little bit offended by that. But now, this has been really helpful. Like, oh, it's not that he didn't like my artwork. It just wasn't the genre that best was suited for that group of people. And so they have a right to make that comment. Another thing that is crucial to status is the gatekeepers of a community, the artist, and does the artist have trust within that community itself? It's way harder to trust an outsider and to give status to the artist and like their reputation and the artwork itself. Does the art actually meet needs of the community? Like, do people even want it? There's all kinds of things that status is at work with that. Also, our idea of excellence is on the table when we talk about status. All these things are at play. And each group of people is different. My family, like my extended family, has a certain expectation of what good art is, or good music, good visuals, whatever. That's different than your family, or the other family over there, or a family from this culture. And that's different from this church or that church, or this group of hobbyists. Or, I mean, every group has their own way of determining what excellence means, right? And so that's one piece. The second piece is acquisition, meaning how does something spread? How is it going to get acquired by the rest of the group? Who is going to validate the art itself? And so you can kind of hear why these two, status and acquisition, they need to play together. And so gatekeepers need to approve of what the art is in order to spread it. How are people going to get exposed to it? How is it going to how are they going to have interest in it? Who shares it? All those things are on the table when we talk about that. Okay. Now, I want to add one more piece here. And that's how these three play together. So when artwork is being made, status can occur in two different ways. And I'm going to visualize it this way. I know it's hard to see. Sometimes status can be ascribed to the artwork, and that is how it spreads. Okay, so for any Office fans out there, if you listen to the history of The Office and how that thing got started, man, NBC, which is its own status, you get NBC already giving it credibility, right? This TV show. But that, if you hear early interviews, that's kind of wasn't enough. Like, it was kind of this odd show, and they were debating if it was going to go on the chopping block, if it was going to even make it to a second season. But something happened around that time. Steve Carell was gaining so much credibility for some of the movies he was putting out at that time that you actually had Steve Carell's status totally pushing The Office. And had Steve Carell not gained popularity and his own status, people would not, they may not have had a second season. And so that was crucial. But also for it to spread, there is another kind of status that has to happen. Sometimes, let's say you don't have any person kind of validating something. Acquisition gains status through it being achieved. And so, on one hand, yeah, Steve Carell kickstarted The Office to the level it got at that time. But I don't know if you noticed, but The Office has become its own kind of folklore in our culture today. And so what has happened? Well, the credibility of the show itself is actually, by its own doing, gaining status. It's achieving status with the rest of, Americana culture. And so you got, just in this one show, two different ways status is kind of operating. And now it's perpetually gaining more status, and it's developing its own meme society. There's no stopping The Office anytime soon, even though it hasn't been on the air for like 10 years, right? And so that is just how these things work. Now I'm going to make a proposal here. And this is kind of where I want to land at, is that you don't know what you don't know. And you don't know if you've got Luther's next hymn embedded in your imagination right now. You don't know if the next Office is kind of hidden in your idea phase right now, percolating in there. You don't know if that thing that you want to bless your family with, if it's going to work. And so usually what tends to happen, I know for me big time, is I don't make anything and I get scared. And I kind of block off for all kinds of reasons, fear of rejection or failure, or I'm not good enough, imposter syndrome. I kind of block out making anything. Like, I think that's why for many years I kind of stopped making stuff, because all these like internal debates I was having, like, am I good enough and all that. But I'm just going to advocate for this big time, that if you don't make anything, you're not impacting anybody with your art. And so I would encourage you this year, man, try to make more things this next year than you did last year. And there might be a lot of misses. But even if you don't, if things don't gain traction, everything you make is an opportunity to learn, right? And you just don't know how your artwork might end up spreading and blessing people. Just like, man, it was really encouraging. I don't know if I'm going to get this job from this old friend of mine or not. Waiting to work out those details, but I hope, man, that happens. But at the end of the day, it is so cool to know that something I made almost 20 years ago is having an effect even still today. And so that is my encouragement to you today, is go out there, make some more things than you did last year.